Thank you, Speaker. Before I begin my remarks, I want to start by echoing the comments that Premier Ford made yesterday about the news we've seen across the United States and here at home. I want to be clear that our government has absolutely zero tolerance for racism, hate, or discrimination in all its forms, and I know this sentiment is shared right across Ontario. It would be wrong, though, to think that racism and hate are problems that only affect people elsewhere, or that we could relegate Ontario's fight against racism to the history books. We can't, because we know this is a real-life problem and that our neighbours and friends experience every day, and it must stop. Our government has shown its determination to put an end to hate in our communities, but we know there is more to do before everyone in our province can feel safe and feel safe as they should. As the minister who leads Ontario's Anti-Racism Directorate, I can guarantee we will continue to work with you to ensure everyone who calls Ontario home can feel at home, no matter their background, race, language, or religion. It is an honour to be in the House today to open the debate on the extension of the Provincial Emergency Declaration. As Solicitor General, my ministry holds responsibility for emergency management in Ontario, including operating the Provincial Emergency Operations Centre. Additionally, the Emergency Management and Civil Protection Act, which is Ontario's emergency management legislation, also falls under the jurisdiction of the Ministry of the Solicitor General. I would like to begin by thanking the legislative staff again, who have made it possible for members to assemble safely and continue our work in response to the COVID-19 outbreak. I also want to thank colleagues on each side of the House for their personal efforts to travel here and be present, all in the spirit of public service. For the last 3 months, it's not been business as usual in the province of Ontario, Speaker. During these unprecedented times, we have witnessed extraordinary efforts by the people of Ontario. They have kept us fed, ensured the flow of essential supplies, made sure that the lights stayed on, kept our communities safe, and maintained the medical front lines. They have been the brightest light during the darkest days of COVID-19, and they are the reason why we are so far along our path to recovery. The COVID-19 outbreak is the largest global health threat seen in decades, and Ontario has not been left untouched. COVID-19 has forced us to re-engineer our lives, staying at home, practicing physical distancing, and caring for our loved ones under the most difficult circumstances. Over the past 3 months, our strength has truly been tested. Ontarians have risen to the challenge and have been doing their part in the fight against this deadly virus. We launched the Ontario Together portal to encourage businesses, innovators, and entrepreneurs to submit proposals to help in the fight against this deadly virus. Ontario Together not only protects our front lines in the fight against COVID-19, it is providing the template to ensure that Ontario never again will have to rely on other countries for the supply of PPE and other life-saving equipment during a medical crisis, fulfilling a promise made by our Premier. We have also launched a partnership with Spark Ontario to support the province's first bilingual volunteer hub, connecting volunteers with community organizations that support vulnerable Ontarians. The spirit of volunteerism that is evident in all Ontarians is especially strong during this crisis, which is why I am pleased that over 5,400 users and thousands have visited, 54,000 users and counting have visited the Spark Ontario website to learn how they can volunteer. Over 3,500 civic-minded Ontarians have signed up to volunteer, and over 141 community organizations have registered for volunteer matching. Today, volunteers are supporting seniors, people with disabilities, and others in need as they stay home during the COVID-19 outbreak, with food delivery, shopping for supplies, running errands, providing remote mental health crisis support, and tutoring our children. Volunteers are also mentoring seniors on technology to ensure they are connected online, as well as providing mental health support to both seniors and people with disabilities by writing letters and poems. This level of support demonstrates the power of the Ontario spirit at work, coming together for a single purpose: to beat COVID-19. Since the beginning, Speaker, our government has taken strong action to combat the virus and limit the spread. On March 17th, we took the important step to protect Ontarians from the threat of COVID-19 by declaring a provincial emergency through the Emergency Management and Civil Protection Act, upon the advice of the Chief Medical Officer of Health. An emergency declaration gives the government a platform to quickly implement and enforce time-limited orders to keep our communities safe, assist our frontline workers, and reduce the burden on our healthcare system. Since enacting the emergency declaration, our government has issued more than 40 such emergency orders. Those did not happen overnight. They were implemented gradually and as necessary as we identified new ways to fight the spread of this deadly virus and maintain normalcy where possible. For example, these include the redeployment of staff in a number of settings to assist in the front lines of the battle against COVID-19, as well as an allowance to have wills and powers of attorney signed digitally in order to respect the public health guidance around gatherings. The framework provided by the Declaration of Emergency also allows us to amend some emergency orders in response to the changing situation. Think of it like a dimmer switch rather than simply turning the emergency order off and on. We have already started easing some of the restrictions put in place through emergency orders as part of our government's roadmap for reopening Ontario. We will be easing more restrictions as our collective efforts to stop the spread of COVID-19 continue to see results. But this fight against COVID-19 is far from over, Speaker. We took these extraordinary measures because we must offer our full support and every power possible to help frontline workers in the healthcare and other critical sectors to contain the spread of COVID-19. It is critical that we continue to do everything we can to stop the spread of COVID-19 and protect the health, safety, and well-being of all Ontarians, which is why there is a motion before this House today to extend the provincial emergency until June the 30th. As members know, an initial declaration of emergency lasts for a period of 14 days, at which time it can be extended by the Lieutenant Governor and Council once for a further 14 days. After that, the declaration can be extended for additional periods of no more than 28 days with the approval of the legislature. With the consent of the legislature, in April and May, the declaration of emergency has been extended in increments, most recently until June 2nd. The government is now asking the legislature to consider extending the declaration of emergency for an additional 28 days to June 30th. Speaker, none of us have taken these decisions lightly, whether it was to declare an emergency or to press the pause button on non-essential parts of the economy, and today's motion is no exception. We have asked a lot of people. We have asked a lot of the people of Ontario, and Ontarians have responded in more ways than we could have asked. I want to thank Ontarians for the role each and every one of them have played in this fight thus far, and I want to assure them that by extending the emergency order, we are providing a framework for the gradual and safe reopening of the province. That time is on the horizon, Speaker. Consider all that has been accomplished to support Ontarians since March 17 and the complete shutdown of all non-essential businesses. An emergency order allowing for doctors and medical staff to be rapidly redeployed to potential COVID hotspots. An emergency order ensuring that Ontario hydro rates were charged at a flat rate no matter what time of day it was used. An emergency order paved the way for yesterday's announcement by the Premier and the Minister of Energy to implement a new COVID-19 recovery rate for those usually paying time-of-use rates. A previous emergency order limiting gatherings of 5 people or fewer has been amended to allow those religious organizations that want to safely conduct worship from their cars to do so. And the Speaker, the province is starting to cautiously and safely reopen. Industries are starting to return to operations. Stores with street entrances are opening. Ontarians are visiting garden centres, as well as enjoying our province's golf courses, marinas, and provincial parks. In the spirit of that gradual provincial reopening, some emergency orders have not been renewed at this time, including the emergency order that prohibited recreational camping on Crown land. Soon, Speaker, assuming that key public health trends continue in a downward direction, we will be in a position to reopen more of the province. I'm not here today to tell you what that reopening will look like or how long it will take. Nonetheless, by establishing the framework to continue responding to the changing landscape of COVID-19, an extension of the emergency declaration is an essential piece of reopening the province and ensuring the safe and orderly return to a fully functioning economy. Ontario's collective fight against COVID-19 is being guided by a number of considerations, including the advice of the Chief Medical Officers of Health, our COVID-19 command table, and government's framework for reopening our province. It continues to be supported by the Ministry of Labour Training and Skills Development that has been publishing sector-specific health and safety guidelines for those businesses that have already opened and those that are preparing to return to business. There are over 90 sector-specific guidance documents released to date. I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the human toll that this battle has already taken on Ontarians in the form of death and serious illness. It has also impacted our daily lives, as well as our businesses and our communities. It is said that all politics are local. Every member of the legislature has seen the brutal cost of COVID-19 in each of our ridings and the high price being paid by our constituents. We have taken the calls, read the emails, and have been inspired by their determination to see us through. Across Dufferin-Caledon, for example, the much-loved farmers' markets have been cancelled or delayed opening, a reality across many communities due to the ongoing physical distancing requirements. Cancellations like these are challenging, both on the vendors who rely on them and for our communities who shop local. Recognizing that impact, our government has committed to working with the ag-food sector to support them in transitioning to an online business model and leverage new online opportunities. Through a $2.5 million targeted fund, along with our federal partners, we are providing grants to eligible agri-food businesses of up to $5,000 to bring their businesses online, as well as a cost-sharing grant to develop e-business opportunities on a larger scale. That's just one way in which our government has been working to address the impacts of COVID-19 on our community and adjust to the new COVID normal. As I've said, Speaker, it's clear that the fight is not over. There is much more to be done to stop the spread of COVID-19 and help Ontarians rebuild their lives and livelihoods from the disruption caused by this pandemic, which is why extending the declaration of emergency is so important. The 40-plus emergency orders that have been issued since March 17 are the levers that the government uses to limit the spread of COVID-19, protect Ontarians, give support to medical staff and other frontline workers, and gradually reopen the province in a way that does not jeopardize the recovery. The emergency declaration provides the framework to support these levers. I also look forward to the day when all emergency orders can be lifted and the emergency declaration ended. That day is coming, Speaker, but we're not there yet. As long as Ontarians, especially our seniors and the most vulnerable among us, are at risk, we must use every tool at our disposal and take any action necessary to fight this virus. We must move carefully and cautiously to ensure we don't put anybody at risk and remain ready to rapidly respond to any potential outbreaks or a surge in cases, especially now as we travel along the slow and gradual road to reopening Ontario. Speaker, these are extraordinary times. In our province's history, the people of Ontario have triumphed through 2 world wars, the 1919 Spanish flu, the Great Depression, and the SARS epidemic. But much of our population has never had to endure a crisis such as the one we are facing today, and the unprecedented measures that have been taken to reduce the spread and keep all of us safe. By requesting an extension of the emergency declaration, we are acknowledging that the adjustment and personal sacrifices we have made must continue to be made for a little bit longer, and we must not lose sight of what we are fighting for. History has taught us that during times of extreme adversity, Ontarians pull together and come out even stronger. We shall do so again. To limit the spread, protect our frontline heroes, and to return Ontario to prosperity, I ask the members of the Legislature to support the motion to extend the declaration of emergency today. I can think of 14.5 million reasons to do so. Thank you.